Whether it's 300 pulls or rerolling for your ideal starter account character, everyone will eventually reach this crossroad of picking a character to choose from our 6 starting characters. And in today's video, I will help you make that decision 10 times easier throughout my experience with each character thanks to RNGesus. The goal of this video is to not rank each character amongst each other and rather just talk about their pros and cons so you know what you are signing up for when it comes to each character. There will eventually be a tier list video in the future, but give me time because it's a lot of work I want to put into that. But back to this video's topic, the 6 characters you will be able to choose between are Nekomiya, Rena, Soldier 11, Grace, Koleda, and Lycaon. Each character will be graded in 5 subjects from their difficulty to play, their damage performance in battle alongside their abilities, the effort it takes for them to be built to an effective level, the current viable team options that they have, and finally, their future potential and where do I see them in about half a year from now, with each subject being scored from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest dash hardest and 5 being the highest dash easiest. For example, an effort to build 1 would mean really hard to build, while in teams 5 would mean very easy to place in a team. But before we get started, if you find this video to be helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more Zenless Zone Zero videos in the future, including my eventual tier list, which should release a few days before the game actually comes out. Also, before you get into the meat of this video, comment on who you wanted to get first and who you decided to get on after watching this video, as I'm curious to see people's responses. I appreciate the support from each and every single one of you as we get closer to the game's official release. Finally, if there are any weird changes last minute, kind of like how they removed Himiko and Welch's technique stacking in Honkai Star Rail a week before release, I will mention them in the pinned comment down below, so please be sure to look at that just in case. Now, starting us off, we have Rena, who is an electric support character belonging to Victoria Housekeeping Company. When it comes to difficulty to play, she is one of the easiest characters due to her long range playstyle on basic attacks, while also having low time on screen as a support character. As for her damage potential and abilities, her EX special attack reactive assist brings in your next character safely, and her chain attack is also great for sunking in enemies, not to mention her shock application isn't too bad as well due to her long range attack multiple hits. She does, however, lack in the damage department as she is a support character and never expect to use her ultimate in battle. This allows her to be a great tag-in character with perfect assist, as her evasive assist allows you to easily run away from bad situations or just tag back in your DPS while the slowdown time is up. Thanks to her ability to apply shock from afar, she can help lead to some easy disordered damage setups, but her application isn't too high, so don't expect it to be reliable unless investing into it heavily. Speaking of investment, her effort to build is very low since she is so defensive. You will rarely get hit with her unless you are playing a blindfolded challenge. And since he isn't really a DPS, you can technically just take her resources and throw them into your damage dealers and just focus on her ability to apply shock for disorder. Instead of keep talking about disorder, let's talk about her teams. She's great with any close range DPS, as her ability to close the gap between her and the enemy is great with her EX special attack. So characters like Ellen, Nekomiya, and etc. Her shock application also works pretty decently, so you can pair her with characters like Grace or another future applicator for disorder. This also applies to DPS characters like Soldier 11, who can apply on each auto. Finally, we have her future potential, and as a support character, I have more faith in her ability to stay meta relevant thanks to her passive support role, unless we get direct competition in the electric support character role. So for her rating, it would be 5 in difficulty to play, 5 in effort to build, 3 in damage potential and abilities, 4 in her teams, and a 4.5 in her future potential. Next, we have Lycaon, who is an ice stun character who belongs to Victoria Housekeeping Company as well. When you think of ease of use, Lycaon is probably one of the easiest close range fighters thanks to his EX special attack having some of the longest amount of invulnerability frames of any character thanks to its hold mechanic. If this was in a fighting game, think of it like Blaze Blue's Noelle drive combos, but if she was totally invulnerable throughout the whole damn thing. But he does require energy to do this, so it's not totally free. Otherwise, he is average as he doesn't have anything that requires real thought in terms of combat. For Lycaon's damage and abilities, he likes to push enemies into stun as fast as possible by building up their dazed gauge quicker than your standard character. This has a lot more effect against bosses than standard enemies since they tend to die well before the stun gauge is even maxed out, leading to him being more of a boss character and not having too much value for standard enemies. But the difference in damage when he is in the party versus a stunned boss enemy is huge, as he increases the damage multiplier the enemy gets in the stun state, leading him to be a great asset in these cases. But his personal damage is decent if you have the resources to invest into him. His ice application isn't too bad either when he's given a lot of energy, otherwise it's pretty bad. When it comes to teams, Lycaon is looking to be paired with his Victoria team members or another ice ally, since a lot of his value once one of these conditions met. This leads him to be not too flexible in the teams department since ice units are very limited currently, and besides Corrin, most of his partners are 5-star characters. As for his future potential, I am not too keen on him being a long-lasting character, as I see a stun character who has longer range or has the ability to gather enemies or applies debuffs more frequently, easily taking his spot no matter the element, since he's not too great in any of these areas. And since he isn't as flexible as other characters, I'm not too positive on him seeing long time meta use, but will still be useful as an ice character. His rating would be 4 in difficulty to play, 4 in effort to build, 3.5 in damage potential and abilities, 3 in his teams, and a 2.5 in his future potential. Now we have Nekomiya Mana, who is a physical attack character and the newest member of Team Cutting Hairs. As an attack character, while she isn't the hardest when it comes to her combos, her true damage potential comes from abusing her dodge attack as much as humanly possible, leading her to be one of the harder characters to play. This combined with a harder to use than average EX special attack, as it does tend to whiff in battle against certain enemies since it lunges you forward, and against fast moving enemies it can be harder to land all hits, making her not too easy to use. Where she does make up for this, however, is her extreme speed and wide range on attack with one of the largest AoE ultimate attacks. Since her role is as a main DPS, you will have most of your playtime with her on point, dealing majority of the damage for the team, which she does excel at for now. But she is just a physical attacker, so she doesn't get all the fancy abilities other elements would naturally get against certain enemies. However, she doesn't have the weaknesses either, such as being resisted against, leading her to be a middle of the road option that can be used in every scenario. What does make this a bit harder, however, is her teams. Since he belongs to Cutting Hairs, you get a full team of viable partners that cover everything from double DPS setup with Billy to support setup with Nicole. You can even run someone like Corrin to lower enemies' physical resistance and boost Nekomiya Mana's attack, or run gap closures like Rena, giving her plenty of options. As a DPS character, Nekomiya Mana is going to want to run down the traditional critical rate and critical damage path, leading her to be a bit more stat hungry here and harder to build out of the 6 units, since every substat you want would need to be offensive. As for her future potential as one of my current favorite units, I want to lie and say I see her lasting for a long time, but realistically, I don't believe it will be long before she is power crept out of her role as a main DPS and turns into something more like a sub DPS, unfortunately. But I would say as boss difficulty increases, she has a higher chance in the meta thanks to her being more focused on dodge counter rather than a combo setup. Her rating would be 2 in difficulty to use, 2 in effort to build, 4.5 in damage potential and abilities, 4.5 in teams, and a 3 in future future potential. We now have Soldier 11, who is a fire attack character belonging to OBLLS. I don't know what that stands for. It's a squadron, which is pretty much non-existent at this point in the game, so realistically she's the Kirito of this game, and this leads her to be forced into situations such as being forced to play with another fire character to unlock her full potential. Leading us into problem number 1. We only have 2 fire characters, Koleda and Ben Bigger, aka if you don't get one of them, well, expect your Soldier 11 to function at less capacity, making her one of the hardest characters to place in a team. Leading into issue 2, she is a timing based character. You remember Guitar Hero? You hit notes to the beat. Now just remove the track, put a steady beat, and you play like that for the rest of the game. Honestly, one of the hardest characters to play, since if you want to button mash, avoid this character with a 10-foot pole. But no worries, her role as an attack character has her damage at currently the highest of all the starting cast, so while she does take some work to get going, you are rewarded handsomely as long as the enemy ain't swinging back too much. Then things get a little bit trickier as she does have a above average dodge counter, but it's not the strongest in game, bring her down her overall DPS. When it comes to building Soldier 11, she is once again going to be your average critical rate, critical damage lover, trying to get as much out of that, but I can see her build drastically changing in the future to become something like a support burn applicator, thanks to her ability to apply it so quickly. Because of this, when I think of her future potential, while now she is a main DPS fully, I think her true benefit will be that of a support for another burn applicator, and you tag her in quickly for her EX special attack and tag her out. Or vice versa, you keep her as a main DPS and her party changes into a burn combo instead of critical rate and critical damage. For her rating, I will give her a 1 in difficulty to use, 2.5 in ease to build, a 5 in damage potential and abilities, 1 in her teams, and 4 in her future potential. When first looking at Koleda, while being absolutely adorable, she is also not exactly what you would expect, but let's first start with her typing as a fire stun character who belongs to Belobog Heavy Industries. She carries a lot on her little shoulders as the president. But not only that, she's one of the most unique units at the release of the game, as her performance is drastically changed with and without Ben Bigger, as she received unique combination attacks that are only accessible when he's in the party. Therefore, if you ain't running him, do not run this character, as they were legitimately made for each other, which makes team building for her easier or harder depending on how you look at it. From her requiring a 4-star character who isn't free, which means you can get unlucky and never roll him. This also leads her to be one of the easiest characters to play, since her team is pretty much loaded in defense thanks to Ben and her playstyle being very straightforward, not requiring much thought or mechanics. As for her damage potential and abilities, she, like most stun characters who want to push enemies in the stun as quickly as possible, leading her to not be that great in mobbing unless you want to chain attack every single enemy, but at least she does have a wide area of reach when Ben is in the party. Either way, that's okay, as what she excels at is bossing with a good mixture of defense and offense, but don't be too surprised if you are timing out in certain fights or not able to secure an S rank clear since you weren't able to clear the fight fast enough. When it comes to effort to build, this is where it gets harder. However, because building her is a two-way street, you can run her as the lead damage dealer in the team on a critical build, or you can try to play her more into her ability to stun enemies and use your third slot as the main DPS and swapping to her on the downtime. Since he is somewhat restricted to one team member who is also defensive, while you may never die, your time to kill will be a major issue, which makes looking at her future potential very hard, since she does already have somewhat of an established team, which hurts her overall flexibility in content where speed is the primary objective. But when survivability is key, she will be an extremely strong pairing. Once the pair falls off, however, I don't see much value in her as a solo unit, which kinda will hurt her solo viability, leading her to be not really used much anymore. Might just be one of the issues with this dually focused character. Her rating would be a 4 in difficulty to play, 3 in ease to build, 2.5 in damage potential and abilities, 3 in team builds, and 2 in a future potential. Finally, we have Grace, who is the final character of the 6 and is an electric anomaly character belonging to Belobog's Heavy Industries. As our one and only anomaly unit at the start of the game, she's going to be a different breed, as while her difficulty to play is very low, not having any special gimmicks or things to manage, her effort to build will be unlike any previous character, focusing on anomaly percent boosting abilities so she can apply her shock much easier. I'm actually not the biggest fan of her playstyle in game, as I feel she doesn't hit the enemies nearly as much as you would hope for an applicator, especially with her ultimate and EX special attack, which leads her current damage potential and abilities to not be as high as you would hope, but this can always change with more character inclusions. And when it comes to her team options, we don't currently have any characters whose sole focus is to apply attribute effects, so you end up turning other characters into hybrid builds to either proc more shock or activate disorder effects. But fret not, I feel just like certain builds get stronger with time, this is one setup that will only get more powerful as we get more characters focused around application as their main source of damage, which gives her a lot of future potential damage options, but for now, it's not really the strongest playstyle. Her rating would be a 4 for difficulty to play, 3 for effort to build, 2.5 for damage potential and abilities, a 2.5 for her current teams, and a 4.5 for future potential. Now to recap a couple of things. Please don't compare ratings between each character, since I didn't score them against each other, just on what I think of them as the star of their own show. I will eventually get around to doing something like that, but for now, I just want to give a bit of clarity to this very important choice. If you are someone watching this video well in the future, stuff may have completely changed, so please disregard or leave a comment so future me can respond to your question. I appreciate everyone who has made it this far in the video, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and comment down below who do you plan on choosing. As for me, it was between Nekomiya Mana and Rina, as I like them the most in the beta. Unless Soldier 11 gets a viable teammate before then, and then I will grab her instead. But until next video, thank you for watching. I will see you then. Goodbye.